Шановні колеги, дякую.
Esteemed colleagues, thank you for all whom is here. We continue our work in the UCMC. The topic of the next event is announcing conference Kazymyr Malevych Kyiv aspect. Our guests are Tetyana Filevska, researcher of Malevich heritage, organizer of the book Kazymyr Malevych Kyiv period 1928-1930. Also, she is the organizer of the conference. Besides Oleksandr Savruk, the dean of Kyiv-Mohyla Business School, Dmytro Gorbachov, professor, researcher of Ukrainian avant-garde art, honorary head of the organizers committee of the conference, Jean-Claude Marcadé, art expert, art historian, curator, honored director of the National Center for Scientific Research. Also, Figel, director of the Polish Institute in Kyiv, minister, counsellor of the Embassy of the Republic of Poland in Ukraine, and Natalia, the creative director of the UCMC. The first one will be Tetyana Filevska. The microphone is on. Good afternoon to everyone. I would like to congratulate all of us with this very important event for Kyiv and for the world as a whole, because during the last year, Kyiv returned Malevich to itself. Today, the world will receive Ukrainian Malevich. Less than a year ago, we found the texts related to Malevich's teaching in Kyiv Ukrainian Art Institute. There was a book of Rodovit Publishing House dedicated to the Kyiv period of the life of Malevich. We have now 25 researchers of the creative art of Malevich who came to Kyiv to open up all the mysteries related to Malevich. That's an unprecedented event. First of all, because that's not the project which was planned or which has some state partnership funding. That's the project of the conference, which exists only thanks to interaction of many initiators, of many institutions. Today at the opening ceremony, I will be talking in more detail about that, because all our partners, our co-organizers, there are many of them, and will take a lot of time to just name them, but that is very important experience when organizations from different spheres, from the Ministry of Culture, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the National Academy of Arts, private Pavel Gudimov Art Center, some private initiatives, commercial, Federiv Hub, or Jewelry House. These are all different stakeholders united by Malevich. Thanks to the importance of Kyiv and Kyiv period, this is the first time when researchers of Malevich's work came to Kyiv. Almost every year, somewhere in the world, there is a conference taking place, and Jean-Claude and Dmytro Amilanovich will confirm that. The conferences takes place in New York, in Los Angeles, and Buenos Aires, but this is the first time we have such a conference in Kyiv. Myself, as an initiator, as one of the co-organizers of the process, I am absolutely happy. I cannot really believe that this is all starting today. The whole day we are talking about Malevich, about Kyiv, will be in the evening opening officially the conference which will be dedicated to Kazymyr Malevych. Besides the scientific conference where there will be some scientific presentations, we also prepared some public program, and it is important for us to have it not as a closed event but as an event which would be of interest for a wider audience. We've prepared the demonstration together with the Dovzhenka Center. We will have a music part from a Kyiv ensemble, and also very interesting exhibition of archive materials. That's probably the most difficult part of the project, because for the first time we will publicly demonstrate the archives from the National Art Museum related to Malevich from the family archive of Kropivnitskys, and we prepared the media project also for this exhibition. I invite you all, please get registered. We opened up the site of the conference, malevich.kiev.ua, and you will find the registration button there, and today, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow in the National Academy of Arts, there will be the conference, and on the 9th of October there will be a final lecture of our Dutch guest. And this is all the general organizational information. I would like to give the floor to Oleksandr. Thank you, Tetyana, as the co-organizer. I would like to say that we are, it's quite strange cooperation, business school and arts. Malevich as a myth, Malevich as a metaphor, Malevich as a symbol of many things, is returning back home. Is returning as a winner of the world. 300 meters from here he was baptized. I believe he feels very comfortably here. And what is even more important, it's not just that he was born here and he stayed here, but it is important to perceive him together with the potential that he has always had. And our role is to start learning about the history of design, not from some Chinese or Korean gadgets, not from some achievements which are secondary, but from the real source of that. Every person has to understand what was this DNA of the global importance about. And I believe that this event is really very important for our culture today. Now, Dmytro Gorbachov. It is important that we all understand that Kiev and Ukraine are involved into global processes. The image of Ukraine, thanks to Bolsheviks, was reduced a lot. People believe that that's a periphery. Now Kiev, thanks to the efforts, posthumous efforts of Malevich, Kiev becomes part of the world coordinates. And there is also the Ukrainian studies, which are important for the whole world, not just for Ukrainian community. Tsarevyanov, who was a researcher of Malevich, he has never even mentioned that there is a geographic place. That's all he knew. Now, one of the Jean-Claude Marcadé is here with us, and he's been studying Ukraine for many years. He has understood that Ukraine is not an empty place. he took a nickname Vanya Markadyuk. You can call him any name. So I'm happy that he's here with us. Once I asked, why do you have such an attention to Ukraine? He says, because of two reasons. My wife was Ukrainian. And I am from Gascogne.
Що таке?
And I understand that Ukraine is like Gascogne. It's not exactly France, and Ukraine is not exactly Russia. So he understands it so well. And now I would like to give the floor to him, and let's listen to what he says. Thank you. As a person from Gascogne, I am a French citizen, but I am Gasconian by origin, so I am sort of Ukrainian in France. So Markadyuk is good surname. I'm sorry that I do not speak Ukrainian. I read Ukrainian but cannot speak. I have no practice in Ukrainian language, in oral Ukrainian. I would like to say that just mentioning that we have this conference today. Also would like to mention this book which was published and there are some new documents in it, and they show this re-Ukrainization that Dmytro Gorbachov mentioned. It's the period when Malevych was working in Kyiv in the end of 20s. That's a very important book. It's great that you published it. And it's great that you translated Russian texts into Ukrainian. That's very important for science. And this new research, which will be made based on this new publication. Together with my late wife, she was Russian-Ukrainian. She emigrated to France, but she considered herself to be Ukrainian. Tomorrow I'll be talking about that, about the texts that were written by Ukrainians in Russian, because they were in Russian Empire. But that was a long time ago, and that was back in the 70s in Los Angeles. There was a big exhibition of so-called Russian avant-garde. Avant-garde in Russia and Ukraine, now we can call it in such a way, because there's the Ukrainian school, and I emphasize it in all my writings, that inside the so-called Russian avant-garde, that is a very important thing, not just Malevych, Ekster, Archipenko, Andrienko. This is the school which is powerful and which is sort of opposing Moscow and St. Petersburg schools, or competing with Moscow and St. Petersburg school. And this lady who organized the exhibition in Los Angeles, she mentioned which artists had to be there, and she said Yermilov. And I say Yermilov is not a Russian avant-garde, that's Ukrainian avant-garde. And then Stephanie Bern said, is there such a thing as Ukrainian avant-garde? And then my wife wrote an article in the catalog about Yermilov, And that was probably the first article. It was in maybe end of 70s. And for the first time she wrote Ukrainian avant-garde. The word Ukrainian avant-garde was used for the first time. So we've been trying hard, because there's a trend to eliminate this notion. There are books published outside of Ukraine, and they're trying to eliminate this element, this Ukrainian element. So I'm fighting. Tomorrow I'll continue. Thank you.
Thank you. The floor is given to Figel. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I will be brief. I am a co-organizer of this event, and we organize, starting 2008, the events connected with Malevych for Ukrainian artists, and for us it is interesting to be involved in such a project. We heard a lot that was said about nationality of Malevych, and at this conference maybe there will be the opinions about other origin, because they are speaking about Ukrainian, Polish and Russian origin of Malevych. But the matter is not a nationality, but what Malevych and his art means for Ukraine and for the world. And we hope that this conference will help to better understand about his art, about his Kievan period, and this help us understand the origin of his art, what he wanted to show to the world, and what he reveals to the world, and what he left behind him. And I believe that also it will help, and we heard about it already, that we will be speaking about the importance of Malevych for Ukraine, because he is the world renowned artist. And also it is important to create Malevych Institute in Kiev, and this institute will help to young artists, and so that would open Ukrainian artists to the world, and that's why it is important that people know a lot about Malevych art, and also they should understand that it is important not only for Ukraine but for the world, and also the group of artists that are connected with the avant-garde, to understand the origin of avant-garde. And this is in the west of Ukraine, but I was surprised because I thought it is coming from the east. So maybe we will overcome all the obstacles along this way. Olesia. So Ukraine Crisis Media Center is a partner of this conference, and this is an important event, and I thank you for coming here, and I'm glad to greet you all. We are not involved in academic area. I am a painter, but last year we were involved in a broad civil campaign to return Malevych and Ukrainian avant-garde and painters to be present in Ukraine. This is a next memory of people. Malevych and Archipenko, they were Ukrainians, and they were inspired by Ukrainian culture, and they had particular Ukrainian cultural traits, and this memory was erased. And this year, interesting things appear, and we have many information events, and we have many politicians, and it is many events are going on, but the personality of Malevych becomes interesting to Ukrainian society, and this was really inspiring for us. Young people were really interested. They communicated and spoke about Malevych, and even we saw a book in the hands of the driver of the taxi who was interested in Marcadé book about Malevych, and I'm really glad that this event is in Kyiv, and due to the enthusiasm of all the partners, we will be able to have a top-level discussion about these topics, and also I believe that journalists will highlight these events in the media, because it should be said in the media that the first Malevych conference is in Kyiv, and it is important not only for Ukrainians of today. This is important for self-identification of Ukrainians. So whether we will believe that we are that our ancestors are peasants, but not only peasants, but also such great artists as Malevych. About that there was elimination, about there was an exhibition on Kharkiv heritage, and there were some pictures and paintings of Malevych, and this was a wonderful exhibition in Amsterdam. Then it went to London, and then I attended this exhibition in London, and I saw in the second hall Malevych, Russian artist, it was written, and there was not a single word about Ukraine, and this is impossible. So that was in London, and there their attitude is not so great towards Russia, but they continue this in cultural sphere. So I wanted to mention such a recent fact. I would like to add that at the end of our conference on Saturday in the evening, there will be a panel discussion finalizing scientific part of the conference, and after this there will be a round table, Malevych, Monet, where we will discuss what this conference gives us and what we are going to do further. And we prepared a special surprise. In Kyiv, there will be a performance, and this performance is the continuation of the project that this artist made in Leiden at the invitation of Whitechapel Gallery. And this is one of the biggest art institutions, and Russians organized some events there, but she spoke about Ukrainian artists. So please attend Alevtina Kahidze's performance and our event. So do you have questions, dear colleagues? Please. Again, Miguel, consultant on management, the colleagues from business school. Malevych is viewed as avant-gardist, and what about his role as a philosopher who tried to see the society in the new way? And the question to organizers, maybe there should be some changes in the curricula in order to change secondary school curricula, in order that children be properly informed about that Malevych is a Ukrainian artist. I would like to start. We are not great specialists in art, unfortunately, and we feel maybe that we should deal with what we understand. We can read words, letters, and what is written in Malevich's work, and what he shows in his work, and this is closer to us than the consequences of his reflections that are realized in his works. So maybe this is a provocation to my colleagues from me. They can have different opinion, but the logic is going outside, beyond. And we are speaking about reforms and going outside the form and going to the essence. This is what we work on different ways when we're speaking about training of people who take decisions in any sphere and in different spheres in business, in state management. So we should go to radically new rules of game. So Malevich showed that he can open new paradigms, and this is the style we should adopt, because it is natural. It can be related to us, to our worldview. That's why he is a revolution in himself. So we are just instruments in his hand. So you are just citing my speech during the opening of the event. So our task is to show these moments connected not only with images, not only with some search, but of course we should consider it on a philosophic, in a philosophic way. And before asking to your second question, I'm not specialist in arts. And I'm working, and I'm a philosopher by profession, and I consider Malevich as philosopher. And I said that he is not only a painter, he changed the way of thinking and the paradigm of culture. He came outside visual art. He involved in all the spheres of life in architecture and design, as he called himself. He is the manager of space, and he tried to go beyond to some space. That's why for me Malevich is philosopher and then the painter who realized his ideas. As the second question, practical one, the first result of the conference that we can announce, this will be the book. It will be the second part, Kazymyr Malevych, Kievan aspect, and this will be the continuation of our Kievan period, our first edition. And we will gather the articles of the researchers, that the ideas that will be voiced during the conference, and these researchers can provide their view, and we won't announce when it will happen because we would like to prepare more. It takes time, and this will be a second edition, and we will try to shake the world by this, and we'll prepare consultations, recommendations for the manuals, for curriculum, and we will be glad to do this. Really, this year we created a site for youth. It is an educational site on Ukrainian avant-garde, and the question we raised is really important because education is the most important thing that can be. And the conference is a very important step towards revealing that Ukrainian needs this. They want to know the history of art at school, or even have some extracurricular classes, and we know that now it is not happening, and only professionals study this history, and there are different projects for adults. I know cultural projects, and these are our partners, and they now create some series of lectures for teenagers on avant-garde, and this conference will be attended by the Minister of Culture, and we will be able to ask him these questions. Thank you, dear colleagues. There are more questions. Please introduce yourself. Sergei Nagorny, I'm a journalist. I'm the participant of the conference. I would like to ask the two organizers. So, you said that you did it by your own efforts. So, maybe there will be some results of the conference that can be recommendations to the state, to state institutions. And the second question to experts. Jean-Claude said, and Figel also told us that we are lacking institutions. We don't have the Institute of Malevych, and we don't have many museums in Ukraine, so maybe we should start with creating the Museum of Malevych, and we have cooperation, international cooperation. So you speak Russian, and I would like to ask Jean-Claude, you participated in many countries at the conferences, and you said that there is elimination of Ukrainian context connected with this issue. And in Western countries, do they support such conferences at the ministerial level? And do state bodies participate, or whether it is done at the grassroots level, for example, like here, that people by their own initiative carry out such events? Does someone support these events at the state level? The situation in Europe, last conference on Malevych was in Geneva. Jean-Philippe Jacquard, this is the professor of Geneva University. He held a philosophy conference. This was not about art, it was about philosophy. And it was organized by the university, and the ministry does not participate. So each university can hold this event. The situation should not be considered like this. Not necessarily should be supported by the state. It can be the initiative of university, scientific or civil groups.
I would like to clarify. Many people support us. We did not have any guaranteed funding. That's a different thing. But in fact, this project has been implemented thanks to an outstanding experience of the partners, thanks to different initiatives. That's a precedent, because people who are absolutely different people, they wanted to support us, and they invested plenty of resources and efforts, and we managed to organize that conference. And we have the support. We have the support, moral support from the state, but that's also important, because the Ministry of Culture, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the representatives of different agencies and public institutions, they start understanding what it is. They support the initiative. The initiative from the top is an old Soviet habit. We need to forget it. I would like to briefly add, it's like it has been mentioned about France. We shouldn't be expecting the state to do everything. The state can help. Once we are talking about the state, it would be great if they help financially, but there is a big problem. And one more thing is planning. It is important to plan better to get to address foreign partners, and that could also help to organize different events. Talking about museum, there are many museums in Ukraine. There's a big problem. We need to have a look at some expositions and think about change of standards related to how the exhibition should be organized, how to give this information to the viewers. It's the museum, it's not just that the museum should be for people, but it is important to attract people to museums. They are to be encouraged to go and see different exhibitions. A couple of words from me. As an expert in management, we have such a thing as budget-driven strategy. As soon as the strategy is implemented via the logic of the budget, it becomes toxic, dead, and non-perspective. It is even dangerous to have equal partnership with people who give money. That is such a strange incentive. It can just help when the idea is working. If the idea is working, the money will come. But if there's nothing stronger than the idea the time of which has come, then it's working, and what's supported by the state in different ways. Non-specifically, but in general, that's a good sign that this topic will live on. And I would like to add, this is a very brief time frame for such an event. People don't so quickly publish books and organize conferences, but in the world of Malevich we do have these very quick pace. Juliana Pachutkina, the Union of Journalists of Ukraine. This is no secret that Bolsheviks liked Malevich. Will he fall as the victim of decommunization? What does each of you see in Malevich's quadrant? I believe I will say a few words about Malevich. In Malevich, there was a lot of propaganda, not just around Malevich, around all the avant-garde artists. I was given a book from Vienna exhibition of Malevich, and that was sponsored by Gazprom. And of course Malevich is and extra Russian avant-garde artists. But what was most interesting for me, it said that avant-garde was born by revolution. Even looking at dates, that doesn't coincide. The avant-garde appeared much earlier. I am very attentively looking at such text. I cannot, at the paintings of such artists, where can we find any Soviet subtext or in extras or Malevich's works? The bureaucrats will not find. It's easier to find connection to folk art than to communism. There's no bad in decommunization for arts. Ukrainian Media Center is supporting that, and all commissions on decommunization should have the artists and art researchers. And Malevich in the art of avant-garde was an active art which supported the ideas of global importance. And we know that the communist regime and socialist regime created such awful ideas which became the reason of terror. But all over the world, the idea of the correct organization of working place or rights for women, these were great ideas. Talking about decommunization, I can tell that Malevych was not a communist and wasn't a materialist. And even when his works were published in a wonderful magazine, New Generation, as well as the poet's futurist Mikhailo Semenko, there was a reservation that that doesn't correspond to our Marxist ideology. So Malevych is not a Marxist, not a communism, so he cannot be decommunized. He was Soviet. In those days, everyone was Soviet. He was the Soviet artist, of course. And then the Black Quadrangle. It was called the Black Quadrangle. The positivists are saying that that is just a form, a zero level. Khan Magomedov writes that a lot is written about this black square, and they give so many meanings to this very simple form. But it's not us. But when he himself writes to Pavel Oettinger, we are saying that that's not a simple form. It's like some people say that everything humane is absorbed by black. It's almost like a Buddhist idea. But when he says, it's like in Christianity, there is the God, Deus absconditus, a hidden God. And like in this letter, I will not give you the exact quotation, but that's the letter to Pavel Oettinger. He says that people will see in my square the new image of God. It's not very simple meaning of this square or quadrangle. Okay, what is the black square for you? I will repeat. It's not just my idea, but that is what resonates with me. It's the most honest painting in the history of arts. It's just the black square on a white background. The symbol and the point of bifurcation, moving from one way of thinking to another way of thinking. We open the door, it's like a portal. And then whether we can design this after, well, we are moving.
Ну, для мене чорний квадрат це насправді.
For me, the black square is the beginning. The beginning of the end of the play with the form. Of course, the black square was not his first work, but it became the most known all over the world. It's important. I have put a work, a small one, a reproduction of black square. It attracts your attention. As soon as you come to the room, you see it immediately. I believe that Malevych was comparing it to the icon. He would put it to the corner where the icon would be put. Visually, it attracts. And I will add. The form is communicated by someone to me, and I become not the subject but the object. Someone communicates something to me, then I become the subject and I start working more actively. This is a qualitative jump. In 1988, there was a big exhibition of Malevych. There were 5 million viewers all over the world, or attendants of the exhibition, visitors to the exhibition. And then I found that someone said that avant-garde is anti-people art. I was in Tretьяков Gallery, standing next to Black Square. Then the group of people came, and the guide, and they asked the guide, just tell us at least something, explain the logic. And she doesn't know what to say, what to think about that, what to say about that. And she started saying, you know, the square is magical. What's magical about it? When you look long at it, it starts vibrating. And one person says, but if you look at anything long, it starts vibrating. When you said cherished, well, it's provocative.
Тиском в НКВД це було, чи ні, тоді називалося вже ГПУ. Воду, що її розладнало Малевича, він здоровань був, але не вистачило його на це, бо там онкозахворювання з'явилося.
He had an oncology disease. Well, Malevych was saying, yes, I am now starving. But they tell me, paint something party, for the party. Mayakovsky writes something for communists and he flies airplanes. If I would paint something for communists, I would fly 2 airplanes. In 1927, when he was called back from Germany urgently, from his exhibition and his testament, he started, if I'm killed, he realized that socialism, freedom turned into dictatorship of terrorists. He wasn't communist, but this ideology had the socialist roots. There was a period of illusion. 1920s are called the time of big expectations. I remember when I was a little boy, in 46, I was hungry all the time, and I saw in 46 and 50 the diagram, 5 years plan, a little cow in 46 and in the 50 a big cow. And I thought, okay, we have to be patient, because in the 50 the cow will grow up big. But in 1950 it wasn't much better. Malevych was a wise person. Now, talking about square, I know that Malevych never exhibited just the square together with others. Then it's ensemble. But if you take it separately, then maybe it's not, it looks like a manifesto. that you can do it without subject, without content.
Я дуже коротко.
Very briefly, for me, I perceive it as maybe that's a provocation, a joke, maybe, and as to decommunization, we shouldn't forget that Malevych was interrogated a lot, and his disease rescued him from being killed, maybe. And talking about Black Square, definitely here. Irina Vakar is here, and she published a book with the sensation that on a black square on this paint it's written the battle of Negroes
In the tunnel.
в
Tunnel.
in the tunnel. And there was a French writer, Alphonse Allais, a humorist, and he made black, in the end of the 19th century, he made black quadrangles and wrote Battle of Negroes in the Tunnel. I don't exclude that it was written by Malevych himself. There are people who say it's impossible, but maybe someone, some vandal, did it. Like he said, okay, that's the Battle of Negroes in the tunnel. But if that was Malevych, what connects him to Ukraine is humor. All his texts, which are grammatically written badly, but they are very, with a lot of humor. He would always add some humor, and that's typical Ukrainian humor. So I believe, well, it's hardly possible, but there is even such an explanation that that's from a French humorist who made this black quadrangle with such a title. We have to finish now. Thank you for coming. See you.
Шановні колеги, наступна подія.
The next event is at 3:30.